Today we begin our downhill run talking about the NFC, moving on to the NFC West, where we're going to talk about its fourth place team and one of this year's most disappointing teams in the NFL in 2024, the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to talk about where I had them in August, what happened with their season, what went wrong, and what now, and how can they get better in the future. But before we begin officially, all right, and welcome in, everybody. Hope you're having a fantastic, fantabulous, awesome freaking day. My name is Garrett Shumake, and you are listening to the Shumake Take. Welcome in to Predictions versus Reality. The offseason series continues in the NFC West as we start our downhill run on the NFC and begin our transition into the AFC this week. Before I begin, make sure to hit the like button and the subscribe button if you're new around here on the channel and you like this type of content. It would really help me a lot in spreading my football passion to more and more people on this platform, so go ahead and do that now. If you know what we're going to be talking about, you can go ahead and move to the timestamp down below. But if you don't know, I made schedule prediction videos back in August, predicting every single record of every team before the season started. And so for Predictions versus Reality, we're going to look back on that, look back to what happened this year, and we're going to look into the future and how this team can improve. Let's jump right into it. For the 49ers, where did I have them in August? I had the San Francisco 49ers going 10-7. My reasoning for this was that this team was still going to be good. They had a decent draft class. They had a small but effective free agency. And that being said, this team was still going to have a Super Bowl hangover. Teams in a situation like the 49ers usually will take a step back the next year. But I still expected this team to be good. I still expected them to make the playoffs. That's why I had them going 10-7, and I actually had them winning the division going into the year. So I was still high on them, despite the fact that they had just lost the Super Bowl in a pretty sad fashion. But unfortunately, everything went wrong for the 49ers. This was a repeat of what happened in 2020. If you remember what happened, 2019, Mahomes won his first Super Bowl, right, against the 49ers, and the 49ers won the Super Bowl. In 2020, the team missed the playoffs. They won 5 or 6 games, but they were decimated with injuries. Same thing happened here. They finished 6-11, fourth in the NFC West. Their offense overall ranked 4th, and their defense overall ranked 8th. So how did this happen? This is a very interesting thing. And before I begin, are their 3 best wins? They beat Seattle 36-24. They beat Tampa Bay at Tampa Bay 23-20 and beat Chicago near the end of the year 38-13. Outside of that, their other 3 wins weren't that great. There was a couple grudge matches in there as well. But as I mentioned, the first thing that went wrong was injuries. Injuries completely decimated this team. Christian McCaffrey started the year on IR, and with his Achilles tendonitis, I think it was what it's called, was condition. He came back, got re-injured it after a couple of games. So who knows if he's even going to be the same player coming back. And then every single starting running back past him, Jordan Mason got hurt, Isaac Guerrero got hurt, and Elijah Mitchell got hurt at some point. Brandon Ayuk got hurt halfway through the year. Trent Williams got lost to the year early on. Right, then guys like Drake Greenlaw and Javon Hargrave missed a lot of time as well. So it wasn't just a bunch of injuries. It was just a bunch of injuries to starters and notable players. So at one point or another, everyone at any position was hurt except for the quarterback position. Even the quarterback was hurt at one point. Brock Purdy missed a game or 2. So, it really was a terrible, terrible year to catch the injury bug for the 49ers coming off the Super Bowl. The 2020 literally repeated itself. It literally just repeated itself for the 49ers. That was the first thing. The second thing was Brock Purdy, because of it all, took a step back. Look, Brock Purdy, any quarterback needs help. And any quarterback in a situation like that where all your players around you, all your weapons are getting hurt, I can get why a step back was imminent. But now, with that being said, I don't want to say this without it being weird. I'm not saying I don't want Brock Purdy to get paid because, I don't like him. He doesn't deserve all that money. No, if he gets paid, I'll be happy for the guy. He's a good guy, a good player, right? Fine. But as a player, as a quarterback, he is not a elite quarterback in the NFL. As a talent, he is not. He's a tier 3 guy to me. You have your tier 1 guys, which are the big 4 in the AFC: Allen's Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, right? And then you have your tier 2 guys who, like a Jalen Hurts or Jordan Love, guys that are physically talented but not freakish, like guys that can just do anything whenever they want, practically. And then you have guys like Brock Purdy, they're talented, they're good, they're clean players, but they do not have the talent to step up and elevate their team. And what this year saw was Brock Purdy cannot do that. Now, is that a knock on him? Yes, it is, but also it's not his fault at the same time because of the injuries. Any quarterback would slow down in this situation, but at the same time, there's some quarterbacks that definitely would have fared much better than others. And for that being said, Brock Purdy proved this year that he is not a system quarterback. I think that term is dying because every system now fits the players and fits what they do best. But you look at what he's done with all the players on the field healthy, and then when they're not on the field, there's a stark difference. And that tells me, okay, Brock Purdy's not a high-end level player. You could probably draft someone else and you would get a similar production out of Brock Purdy after letting him sit for a year. You probably could do that. And so that's why Brock Purdy, in my opinion, doesn't deserve to be paid, because this year kind of proved that. But two things can be right. That's ultimately my point I'm trying to make here is two things can be right. Brock Purdy can be a good quarterback and do well, but also not be that guy to elevate your team when they need you most. So I'm sorry, that's not material that I want to be paying record-breaking money to. And if he gets paid, it's going to continue to ruin the quarterback market, in my opinion. But either way, continuing on, Kyle Shanahan also deserves a piece of blame pie here. While he is a great coach and a great play caller, obviously having a bunch of injuries to your best players hurts how you run things. But also, you look at how this team performed at the beginning of the year versus at the end. Even though the win column didn't see a significant change, right? They won like 4 games in the second half, or 4 games in the first half, 2 in the second. Either way, the team got worse as the year went on. They got worse. The defense got worse. The offense struggled more. They got in blowouts way more often. And that's a coaching issue. That's a coaching problem, because you really didn't. Kyle Shanahan, to me, really did not do enough to adapt his scheme with all the moving parts. I know there's not much you can do in that situation as a head coach, because it's like the running backs, for example. All 4 running backs on the depth chart at some point went down. All of them went down with an injury at some point. So, like, what are you supposed to do there? I mean, that's just hard. You can't really change a scheme that quickly to fit a new guy that's coming in. You can't do that. But at the same time, there is a couple constants. The offensive line, the right side of the offensive line, was mostly constant. Brock Purdy was a constant. Juwan Jennings was a constant. So there is some players there that you could work with. I just feel like there could have been a little bit more done to adapt, because it was weird to me seeing this team get worse as the year went on. The way that they did, especially on defense. This defense in the second half was just straight up not good. They were not a good unit at the end of the year. Of course, all the injuries did not help, but there's a reason why DC Nick Sorensen got fired, because he simply was not doing good enough of a job, and they got worse as the year went on. But ultimately, that type of stuff falls on Kyle Shanahan. He's the head coach. He's supposed to elevate his team. I get it that having a lot of injuries does not help you, but you cannot get worse. In that type of situation, your team cannot get worse, and they managed to get worse. So Kyle Shanahan deserves a little bit of blame here. And then, of course, this defense. They finished 8th overall in total yards, which is great on paper, but they were 5th against the pass. Everything else was mid to awful. They were 18th in the run game, 27th in scoring defense, 31st in the red zone, which is really where this defense fell apart, of course. And they're 24th on third down. So they didn't allow a lot of yards, but at the same time, they weren't good at stopping the run. And every time teams got down in position to score, they scored on the 49ers. They just did not have the juice to sustain long drives and to really bow up when it mattered most. And when you have a bunch of injured players and you have a coach that apparently wasn't good enough in Nick Sorensen, that's the result you're going to get. So, yeah, that's unfortunate. That's really unfortunate, but that is how the cookie crumbled. So what now? What can the 49ers do to get better and improve? Well, I will say this. Had this team been healthy, they would have reached a minimum, bare minimum 8 wins. And that's stretching it. I think this team, had they been healthy from week 1 to week 18, probably would have went 10-7. They probably would have reached the record I would have projected them going. But the injuries did not help. The lack of good coaching on defense did not help. So let's elaborate. The big three for the San Francisco 49ers, where do they need to improve most? Well, they need to address the trenches, just like with Philadelphia. If you want to go watch that video, go ahead and check it out. But they really need to invest in their offensive line and their defensive line. They really need to. Trent Williams on this offensive line, he's getting up there in age. He's still playing great, but he's coming off of an injury. You need a replacement for him to develop him now. You need a guy that can step in once Trent Williams retires and that is ready to play. Because a left tackle already is an important, one of the most five biggest positions in sports, or in sports. One of the five, most premium, most important positions on a football field. Protecting the quarterback's blind side. So you got to figure out how you got to have a plan in place for when Trent Williams comes back or if he starts playing bad. You got to have one. So I'm expecting them to draft someone in the first round. I don't know if they'll be in position to draft a tackle. Maybe, but I don't think Will Howard or Kelvin Banks is going to drop. Maybe you draft Armand Membo out of Missouri. I don't even know. He's not a tackle. He's an interior offensive lineman. But also Tyler Booker out of Alabama. People think he's going to be a center at the next level. Hey, they could use a center as well. Honestly. So you get a center, draft him as a guard, which either way, you need a draft offensive line in the first round. You really got to start building this unit through the draft properly instead of just drafting late round guys, signing free agents. No, they need to draft young and high to fix this group. Same thing for edge rusher. Edge rusher, Leonard Floyd was their main guy, 9 sacks. He's a free agent. Nick Bosa coming off of an injury. They really need another guy to pair next to Nick Bosa. The defensive line group, defensive tackles, Javon Hargrave, he's set to be cut, so he's not going to be there, right? But at least they have players to circumvent that. But edge rusher, they need another one. Maybe defensive tackle is a bigger need with Javon Hargrave leaving and the other guy being a veteran, so you could probably swap that out. But another one is linebacker. Because Fred Warner is there. He's one of the best linebackers, if not the best linebacker in the NFL, which is great. But Dre Greenlaw, he was hurt. He's going to be a free agent. I don't know if they're going to bring him back. And then after that, they have nothing. So maybe you draft in the second round a Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. I don't know if he's going to go in the first round. He could. He's the best linebacker prospect in the draft. So maybe he goes, but positional value drops him to the second. I don't know. For the 49ers, they definitely got to draft edge rusher, offensive lineman, preferably offensive lineman in round 1. But maybe you get Jahad Campbell in round 2 if he drops. They're picking high, so they could theoretically get him. I don't know if he falls into the late 30s, early 40s, though. That's a stretch. So I don't know. That'd be interesting, but the linebacker class does have a lot of young, talented players, so you got to get one. You got to draft one and get away and, try and develop them to go behind Fred Warner because they have no depth at that position now. They desperately need depth at that position. Outside of that, I would say they also need depth at corner, and I already mentioned linebacker, but yeah, corner, they could use a little bit of depth, right? They could also add a receiver to add more depth there. But honestly, it's just building the trenches because this team is very similar to the Kansas City Chiefs in that retrospect because both of these teams have not done enough in recent years to build their trenches. And this is where you're going into a transition time where your team took a step back, the roster's not as good as it was before. You really need to rebuild from the interior, from the inside out. So being able to do that really will help push the 49ers in the right direction to continue their success. Right now, I don't know if San Francisco is going to bounce back and make the playoffs next year, they're guaranteed to be in the hunt. I don't think they're going to be this bad again, but they really need to do this offseason the right way. They need to get the right players. They really need to go about this the right way because they're kind of in limbo. Because if they do it right, they're going to be right back in playoff contention, which is where I'm leaning towards. But also, if they make the wrong moves and the offensive lineman they drafted in the first round busts out, or they draft a defensive tackle or an edge and they bust out, right? If they cannot build the trenches right and really rebuild this roster with a lot of youth, the Super Bowl window could, as much as it could easily throw itself back open, could easily slam itself shut if they don't do this the right way. So the 49ers, they're in limbo. We're going to see what they do in free agency and in the draft. It'll be a very interesting team to follow going into 2025 because they could either go one or two ways. It's either, they bounce back or they don't and their Super Bowl window is completely shut and now this team has to go into a transitional rebuild. So interesting stuff, but that is going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you guys have enjoyed, please make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Pushing those two buttons helps the channel out tremendously and will help me continue spreading my football passion to more and more people on this platform. Also, make sure to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Let me know your thoughts about who do you want the 49ers to draft? Who do you want them to get in free agency? Where do you think they're going to be next year? Do you think Brock Purdy's going to get paid? Does he deserve to be paid? Yes or no? I want to hear all of it down below. Along with that, make sure you guys share the video, whether by word of mouth or by social media. If you want to become a Shumake Take fan, making sure you get locked in and locked onto the Shumake Take podcast is paramount because I have great content coming out for you guys every single week. So you're always going to have great content. It's always going to be coming out, always for free. So can't beat that. You literally cannot beat that. But either way, that is going to do it for me today, guys. Hope you guys have enjoyed, and I will see you all next time.